Welcome back, viewers, to the PI show. We're talking with Caroline McGuinness, an experienced trial lawyer in WorkCover, about the bullying case of Pat DiPietro. Caroline.
The facts.
Yes, what I was just saying before the break is that Pat started with the airlines in November 2005. He was only given 1 day of training. It's a pretty robust sort of work environment. You have to go in and clean a plane within 20 minutes with a team of others. Now, he was working under a female supervisor, so day two he's subject to bullying by this woman, which went on for a period of about 3 months.
Caroline, what are we talking about here?
Well, we're talking about him turning to her and saying, look, could you give me some direction on what I should do next? And she would be repeatedly ignoring him. He'd have to ask over and over. Third time, this is one specific incident where then she turned to him and said, look, my ass doesn't speak. Sorry, I've got to use that language, but that actually came out in testimony.
Well, Caroline, she was swearing at him quite a bit too.
She was swearing at him. She was raising her voice at him all the time. This is in front of other staff members. So
there's abuse of behaviour?
There was abuse. It wasn't so much what she was saying, it was really the way she said it, which was very degrading and humiliating for him. Again, this took place in front of other staff members, so they heard it all. And so this went on pretty much every day. And then there was a very serious incident involving what's now called the Smarty incident, and our viewers would have seen this in the Sun Herald, where he'd finished vacuuming an aisle and she called him back and said, look, you've left a lolly under the seat.
A Smarty.
Well, in fact, her testimony at the trial was a lolly. He then bent down to have a look. He said he couldn't see it. And while he was putting his head down, she then came along and pushed his head under a seat and said, it's there.
So she's grabbed the back of his head and pushed him down under the seat.
So that she could see.
It's basically an assault.
So she's touched him, pushed his head down under the seat. What happened?
Well, he was shaking his head to get away from her. He was very humiliated by it. There were other witnesses.
Front of fellow co-workers?
Fellow co-workers, that's correct.
John, can I say this? I was in court for this case. The thing that broke the straw that broke the camel's back was when on one occasion he was working in a very hot environment. It was very hot in the planes, wasn't it?
That's right, because they used to turn the air conditioning off. Then have to go in, they'd have to clean the plane within 20 minutes. He basically could only endure this for 3 months. It all came to a head one day when he turned up at work. He was having palpitations. He was showing signs of panic attack. He was on the aeroplane, but not under the supervision of this particular supervisor. But when the leading hand noticed that he was struggling, she phoned the other supervisor who was on another plane, and Pat said that he could hear the two of them on talkback, two-way radio. Yeah, and the other supervisor was swearing and saying, look, he's not to leave the airport, we've got a job to do, bring him over here. So again, then he went to the other aeroplane, and again under the supervision of someone who was clearly bullying him, she wouldn't let him leave the plane. He effectively had a complete breakdown at that stage, and that was pretty much the end of his...
Well, he was taken to hospital by ambulance. Because at that point in time, like you said, he collapsed.
He did, yeah.
And he was working in temperatures of in excess of 50 degrees Celsius, and so it was pretty horrendous sort of circumstance.
He was inhumane.
Well, he gave evidence that he was scared to go to work. He used to make up excuses to his partner that he didn't want to go to work because he didn't want to confront his supervisors or tormentors.
So he's lodged a WorkCover claim?
He lodged a claim. That's right, it was accepted.
He's on weekly payments for a period of time?
He was on, and then he to his great credit, he tried to go back to work about 18 months later as a driver with Andrews Airport Parking.
It didn't last long.
It didn't last. It only lasted for about 4 months.
He's seeking psychological help all along also?
Yes, he started seeing a psychiatrist immediately after the incident, and he was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. He wanted to go back to work. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out for him because every time he had to deal with a customer who was showing any sort of aggression, it just brought back all those memories of what had happened to him at the airline. So
a common law damages claim is instituted in the county court,
Yeah,
Tony,
yeah, that's
Yes.
correct.
claiming pain and suffering and economic loss.
That's correct.
That's correct. What we've got to remember here is we've got a person who is pretty much cannot work ever again because of this incident, and who has today is pretty much a recluse. He can't leave the house. He's completely reliant on his partner. He used to be very social. He was very
Caroline, can I
engaging
say
person.
this? We're talking about him being abused and verbally attacked, but at the end of the day, it wasn't only him. There was a whole host of witnesses that come to court to give evidence that said they were abused by the same supervisor. So it was abuse against all the employees by this particular person.
Caroline, what happened at trial?
Well, at trial, what was really critical in this case, and it would be important for other people to come forward who also want to make a claim, is that there were witnesses. We were able to find half a dozen witnesses who backed up our client's story, who gave evidence. Our client was very good in the witness box. He was very believable. So, yes, and the fact is that management failed to do anything. These issues were being brought to their attention and they did nothing.
What
Can
did
I-
the witnesses, sorry Tony, what did the witnesses actually say?
They corroborated the story, basically.
They said that they too had been
backed up the
bullied and
story.
harassed by this particular supervisor.
And you also had, I understand, medical evidence?
We had very good medical evidence by way of ongoing psychiatric treatment right through from the time this incident happened to date. So
Now, what I don't understand is why didn't this settle before court?
it didn't settle because the Workcover Authority was of the view that these were only minor incidences that didn't amount to bullying.
They thought he made a mountain out of a molehill, John. That's the words they used to me. Can I just surmise, because we're running short of time, this case here, Caroline, got $325,000 after 10 days from a county court, a jury of 6.
Correct.
He also, the evidence came out that by one of his doctors that said he could probably do partial hours work.
Yes.
So that means that his settlement was probably reduced.
Reduced,
He got $325,000, of which $100,000 was for pain and suffering.
Yes.
Now, the other thing I'd like to say is, I've got to get off the subject of Pat DiPietro because time's running out, but bullying affects people in the sense they got reduced productivity, less confident at work, stress, anxiety, depressed. It affects people outside of work relationships. They want to stay away from work. And it also manifests itself in physical symptoms. People complain of headaches, back pain, all sorts of things. So when we talk about bullying, it's not only the psychological effects. There's a lot of things that it affects. It affects the families involved and everyone around them. Look, we might have to take this up again in the future, Carolyn and John, but I want to thank Carolyn for coming on board. You did really well there.
Congratulations, Caroline. That was a great case.
Result. Yeah.
Great result, particularly against the Victorian Workcover Authority, who did not want to settle this case and made Caroline run this case for 2 weeks in the county
All right, and for all you bullies out there, remember this. Apart from being prosecuted in a civil court, from now on there's also the prospect of getting criminal liability thrown at you. And in the worst case, you'll be liable for 10 years imprisonment. So don't forget, before you do anything silly, think twice. We'll be back after the sponsors break and we'll have Kathy's mailbag. Thanks, viewers. Keep